Welcome to my recommendation report presentation. The main topic of this presentation is choosing a major, and I am the presenter, Tristan Thompson. Let's begin this slideshow. Let's start. All right. So going into this project, we had one young man that was the main focus of this project. His name is Stephen. He is currently wanting to attend at BYU or Brigham Young University and had some concerns about choosing a major. So the three main things to be discussed in this PowerPoint presentation is which major would be the best choice for Stephen, what would be the main criteria, and what research could we conduct really to help him in making that choice, and what should his response be having gained this knowledge from this presentation as well as the recommendation report. It can be very tough sometimes choosing major. There are many questions that go into choosing a major. Oftentimes, we don't know exactly what we want when it comes to choosing a major and what will eventually be our career. Many of these questions here, as you can see, are very common amongst students that are wanting to attend college for the first time. In order to be able to help Stephen to choose a major, we had to do some research in order to discover some of his interest in a couple of things. So at first we interviewed him to help us to understand a little bit more about Stephen. So what we first wanted to learn about him was his passions. And so we asked questions concerning what were his passions and we jotted down notes to be able to remember what was his particular passions. We also asked him questions about his skills, what he felt that he was skilled at and what he could do. The next questions we asked him were what would be his desired income as soon as he got into the career field? What would be his desired income? The next questions considered his preferred work style. Would he like to be at home working, or would he rather be in an office, or whatever sort of situations that he would prefer as a work style. We asked if he was concerned about the particular trends in a career field. That was the next main thing that we discussed with him. And we asked like income or growth. These are the kinds of things that were discussed in the career trends. Median annual income was also a consideration. We also discussed the 5 ideal things that he would like, or what he considered ideals in the workplace. And we wanted him to tell us particularly what those things were. And we'll discuss those ideals later on in the presentation. We also discussed with him what would be 5 interesting fields or fields that he would find interesting out of a long list that we introduced to him, and asked him to just choose 5. After concluding our interview, we proceeded to give him a short little survey to continue to be able to gather more data concerning his interests, as well as specific data to be able to figure out his major, or which major would best help him or be well suited for him. So we first asked this question and asked him to jot it down. We then asked him this question, just to be able to figure out what he felt in his heart were his strengths and weaknesses. I then asked him this question about furthering his educations past a bachelor's degree, further education or continuing education. We then also asked him about places that he preferred to live. We also proceeded to ask him this question. It is important to ask about family size because that does go into the considerations of major, where you want to live as well, takes into consideration what career path you will take, as well as furthering education, as well as strengths and weaknesses. We also asked him this question, just a continuation of the previous slide. If he would rather live, in a city or a suburb or out in the countryside. These are all very important considerations when considering a career, because some careers like, bioengineers have to be out in the forest and taking samples out in the wild. So considerations as to where you live is very important in considering a major. The next question that the next part of the survey that we conducted was his preferences on travel, if he preferred to travel long distances to get to work or whether or not he would rather prefer to travel short distances. Very important when considering a career, also for previously mentioned reasons. We also asked him what values that he prefers or wants to exemplify in the workplace. These are very important, especially when considering a career, because certain things are valued higher than others in certain careers. And so when choosing a major, it's very important to have your values match with those of the career path that you are wanting to pursue. And lastly, for this part, we presented this question to him. He says, what his ideal work schedule would be. And that was a consideration as well, because many people have issues with scheduling, as well as those that have families or those that consider to have families in the future. But there are also those people that, for example, if you're a nurse, having night shifts would be problematic for some people, while for other people it would not. So definitely very important considerations when wanting to go into a certain career path or when making choices about majors. We also asked him about this. We also went into this question in the survey, which considered what would be his ideal work environment. What would be the thing or the atmosphere that would be the best in his opinion? The survey was quite long. So we also asked him this question in the survey concerning what his ideal thoughts or thought of coworkers would be like. What attributes would they have? This is also very important when considering a major. The people that you work with determine the success and happiness in a career. So it's definitely a very important consideration when considering a major in college as well as a career path. We also helped him to consider the 5 interests and hobbies that he has. This is also very important because hobbies and careers, they're intertwined in many ways. And if you can find a career that matches a hobby or an interest, it means it tends to lend itself to higher success and fulfillment in a career. So definitely a very important consideration when considering a major or a job or a career. This next question considered what would be his ideal college life. What would be the attributes and the characteristics of a college experience for him? And we wanted to consider that. It is very important, especially college life. Successful college life can lend itself to successful careers, as well as lifelong friends and success in life. So it is very important consideration. So continuing, after we collected all this data, we used this data in 3 sources, secondary sources, to be able to narrow down results for a suitable career path or major for Stephen. And so those 3 sources were these. These are very good resources in helping students find a major that would best fit their interests, their desires, their goals, and many other characteristics and values that students must consider when considering a major that would work for them. Now, these were the results that we got from our interview and from our survey. For the next couple slides, we'll begin exploring the specific information that Stephen provided to us. So this was the important skills that Stephen considered when considering a major. So going from the top, critical thinking was the topmost. That was the first one that he considered to be the most important thing when considering a major. The second one was creativity. The third one was emotional intelligence. The fourth was cognitive flexibility. The next one was, or the fifth one was new media literacy. The following one was innovative thinking. The seventh one was leadership. And the final, but not least, was research and analysis. These were the things that Stephen considered to be most important. And I think it is very true that in this particular order, these are very true. Continuing on to continuing findings, we found that Stephen particularly found incomes between the $80,000 and $120,000 range to be the most ideal incomes for him. And so in consideration, we consider that for looking for his majors when we went to find a major that would best suit him. And areas of interest in descending order. The first one that Stephen told us was the liberal arts and humanities. The next one was visual and performing arts, excuse me. The next one was education. The fourth one was communication and journalism. And the fifth one was biological and biomedical sciences. These were the 5 particular majors out of a very long list of majors that we introduced to Stephen that he considered the 5 most interesting majors to him. So this definitely helped us in our search for a major that would be well suited for Stephen. Now, considering our findings, the top career values that Stephen gave to us, the first being was achievement. The following one was relationships, and 3 was appealing work environment. Definitely Achievement would be a very important thing to consider when considering a major, as well as the relationships, as well as appealing work environment. Some environments may not be so necessarily appearing in a career path. So definitely things to consider. Our findings were quite interesting. When we looked at those 3 websites from the previous slide, it gave us a little bit of information about median income. And these are the 4 particular majors that the websites suggested to us. And it was operational research and analyst, medical scientist, sociologist, and a computer and information research scientist. These were the 4 majors that is suggested to us, and it gave us information about the median income. A very important thought for Stephen was the amount of money that he can make to support a family. So based on these findings, we're able to determine that at least 2 possible well-suited possibilities. The first one was operational research and engineering and the liberal arts. Based on his interest, we're able to determine operational research and engineering because of the median income, as well as interest in what he valued in the workplace, and liberal arts based on his interests. Now, how Stephen should go from here. These would be the 2 recommendations that I would give to Stephen. That number 1, he should first review the recommendation report and the information within it to get a detailed analysis, as well as an understanding of the viable majors that he could take in college. And then based on these findings, do something about it. Go and make a well-educated decision based on the findings of the recommendation report and choose a major. I hope that Stephen will be able to make a very good choice when choosing a major, and I hope that this recommendation report presentation has helped him and whoever may be watching this at some future date make a decision when choosing a major.